a lot of people, like, people don't understand when it comes to KK that KK Timpson's stock is in the gutter. Like, it is in the gutter. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, you know, teams will take her based on potential. Like, KK Timpson's potential is hypothetical. You know the way people are like, oh yeah, somebody's ability is hypothetical. Her potential is hypothetical. Like, that's the maddest way I've had to describe this. Like, her potential is hypothetical. Like, her IQ is extremely low. She was getting DNPs overseas.
The decision was made behind closed doors, but the impact was felt instantly across the WNBA. When the Indiana Fever submitted their protected list for the expansion draft, one name stood out as a massive gamble that left analysts speechless. It wasn't about the biggest stars or the highest ceilings. It was about a specific type of protection that Caitlin Clark knew was non-negotiable for the team's future. The silence from the front office was deafening until the strategy finally leaked. This wasn't just a roster move. It was a calculated shield placed around the one player who keeps the entire engine running when the lights get the brightest.
Like, her potential is hypothetical. Like, her IQ is extremely low. She was getting DNPs overseas. Which doesn't happen. If you agree, if you were right to protect Sophie, subscribe. We are trying to get to 57,000 57.1 or 58.1k by the end of the day. Thank you guys so much. Nearly 1,000 subscribers in the last month. Like, we actually will probably go from the 10th to the 10th to 1,000 subscribers in a month, which we haven't done in a long time. So thank you guys. But Sophie is so difficult to replace, and this is why when a lot of free agency people were talking, it's like, oh, you know, you can easily replace Sophie. I'm like, it's actually really difficult. It is really difficult to find.
Sophie Cunningham is often the most polarizing figure on the court, but for the Fever, she became the hill they were willing to die on. Many fans were scratching their heads, wondering why a team with so much young talent would prioritize a veteran who doesn't always headline the box score. But those inside the locker room know the truth that the public often misses. It is incredibly difficult to find a player who gives you a 7 out of 10 performance every single night without fail. Whether she is starting or coming off the bench, the energy remains identical, and that level of consistency is a rare currency in a league that is rapidly evolving.
7 out of 10 every single game. Who will give you the same energy if they're a starter or if they're a bench player. Who will play the one if needed. She can't dribble. But, like, there are certain matchups where she can be a secondary ball handler because she's, like, her IQ, she can play the one. Like, she looked really good playing the one in preseason, and then I think it was the Connecticut Sun full court pressed her, and she just couldn't dribble by them. But she was originally a backup point guard for Caitlin Clark. So she's somebody who can play a little bit at the one. She is somebody who in 2022 played backup 5 minutes for the Phoenix Mercury. Not particularly well, but she's somebody who can play the two.
What makes Sophie truly indispensable is her ability to play almost every position on the floor when the team is in a bind. We are talking about a player who can legitimately slide into the point guard spot and handle secondary ball handling duties because her basketball IQ is through the roof. Even though she isn't known for elite dribbling, her understanding of spacing and timing allows her to navigate pressure that would break other players. She has even logged minutes at the 5 spot in the past. Finding someone competent at all 5 positions is like finding a needle in a haystack, and the Fever front office knew they couldn't let that walk out the door.
Quite a bit. Like, a Caitlin Clark clearly could be a good defender, and Paige could be they could both be really good defenders, but, like, they're so focused on offense that they're not disciplined defenders. At the pro level, neither of them are disciplined defenders. They both switch off the ball. Nobody more so than Caitlin, other than Alyssa Smith probably. KK Timpson, just, I don't even know how to describe KK on defense. But, like, Sophie Cunningham she doesn't switch off. She doesn't switch off at all. She plays hard. She is disciplined. Like, we saw her do a really good job in Paige Beckers. She's somebody.
While stars like Caitlin Clark and Paige Buchers are offensive wizards, they sometimes struggle with the grueling, disciplined nature of pro-level defense. They might switch off or lose focus off the ball, but Sophie Cunningham is the complete opposite. She is a defensive pest who never ever switches off. She stays glued to her assignment, refusing to overhelp or get caught under screens. She doesn't leave her center for dead in a pick and roll or give up wide open mid-range shots. That kind of defensive discipline is exactly what a high-octane offensive team needs to balance the scales when the shooting goes cold and the pressure is on.
Off at all. She plays hard. She is disciplined. Like, we saw her do a really good job in Paige Beckers. She's somebody that is a bit of a pest on defense. Like, she's not going to be the type of player that switches off and overhelps off a shooter, or goes under a screen on somebody that can shoot the pull-up three, that gets caught and leaves the center for dead in a pick and roll and lets them shoot wide open middies. That's not what Sophie Cunningham is. But Sophie Cunningham is a 7.5 out of 10 on a good day defender, 6 out of 10 defender on a bad.
The biggest shock of the expansion protection list wasn't just who was on it, but who was left vulnerable to being snatched away. People have been shouting from the rooftops about KK Timpson's potential for years, but the reality inside the league is much harsher than the hype on social media. Right now, her stock is sitting in the absolute gutter. While fans talk about her physical tools and what she could become, the professionals are looking at the tape. There is a massive difference between hypothetical talent and actual production on the hardwood, and the Fever decided they were done waiting for a breakthrough that might never actually come.
I think they are very close to being an equivalent as players. And Sophie Cunningham will sell. If you were looking at who drafted them, it was the Portland Fire. The Portland Fire literally just drafted people they drafted the fun tank team. They drafted Bridget Carlton out of spite. But they drafted a team that the city is going to be happy to watch lose 35 games next year. And I'm being generous saying lose 35. The Portland Fire might go 4-40. Like, they might lose 40 games. They put together a team that people will be happy to watch lose 40 games. So
the word being used to describe KK Timpson's potential right now is hypothetical, which is perhaps the most brutal insult you can give a pro athlete. It implies that everything people like about her game exists only in their imaginations and not in her actual performance. Her basketball IQ has been called into question repeatedly, with analysts noting that she often looks lost on the floor. When you are trying to build a championship contender around a generational talent like Caitlyn, you cannot afford to waste roster spots on maybe. You need certainty, and Sophie Cunningham provides that in spades, while other prospects remain a giant, confusing question mark.
35. The Portland Fire might go 4-40. Like, they might lose 40 games. They put together a team that people will be happy to watch lose 40 games. So my guess is that, worst case scenario, Sophie Cunningham sells a shitload of jerseys for that team. She sells a shitload of jerseys for the first 10 games of the season. People are going to be excited. You can put Sophie Cunningham's face everywhere in the Portland Fire. Like, I do think, in the end, they took Chloe Bibby from the Fever anyway, a popular player from Indiana. But I do think that Sophie would have been taken had she not been protected, based on what we know.
If you want to know why the Fever made this move, you have to look at what happened to KK Timpson when she went overseas. It was supposed to be her time to shine and develop, but instead it turned into a nightmare. She was getting DNPs, did not play as an import player in Prague. For those who don't follow international ball, an import player getting benched is almost unheard of. Usually teams pay top dollar for Americans to lead the way, so if you aren't even getting on the floor, it means the coaches have lost all faith in your ability to contribute. It was a shocking development that sent shockwaves through the entire Fever front office.
And an import player that is a non-European player, how bad it is when an import player is getting DNPs. Like, it is, an import player getting DNPs is one of the most shocking things I've seen. It is incredibly surprising. And it is a knock on a player. And multiple coaches now have deemed KK not worth playing. And it's not a Stephanie White thing. I do think she still gave more impact up to a point last season than Bree Turner. But what Bree Turner did the second half of the season, or the last 10 games, was better than anything KK did. So yeah, that is pretty much it, lads. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you guys agree with what I'm saying? Do you guys disagree?
When an American player goes to a European league, they are expected to be the engine of the team. If a coach decides that a non-European import isn't worth playing, it is a massive red flag that every WNBA scout notices immediately. It suggests that the player isn't just struggling with a shooting slump, but that they can't read the game or play defense at a professional level. Multiple coaches have now looked at the young talent and decided she wasn't the answer. This isn't just a one-time fluke or a personality clash. It is a recurring pattern that made the Fever's decision to protect Sophie over her incredibly easy and logical in the end. Towards the end of last season, the gap between the players on the roster became impossible to ignore. While some had flashes of brilliance early on, they were quickly overtaken by players who actually understood their roles. Bree Turner, for instance, provided an impact in the final 10 games that far surpassed anything the higher potential prospects had shown throughout the entire year. It is one thing to have a high ceiling, but it is another thing to actually hit the floor and help your team win games. The Fever saw the trajectory of both players and realized that betting on Sophie's veteran presence was the only logical move to make for the core. We also have to look at the teams doing the drafting, specifically the Portland Fire. Their strategy for the expansion draft was clear from the jump. They wanted to build a fun team that the city would enjoy watching, even if they were destined to lose a lot of games. They were looking for players who could sell jerseys and put fans in seats while the franchise found its footing. Sophie Cunningham is exactly that type of player. She is popular, charismatic, and has a massive following. If the Fever had left her unprotected, Portland would have snatched her up in a heartbeat just to put her face on every billboard across the city for marketing.
The Portland Fire are essentially putting together a squad that people will be happy to watch lose 35 or 40 games next year. They need personalities to keep the fans engaged during a rough inaugural season. Sophie is a marketing goldmine, and her jersey sales alone would have made her a top target. Worst case scenario for Portland, they get a veteran who sells a ton of merchandise in the first 10 games. Best case scenario, they get a gritty leader who can mentor their young draft picks. The Fever knew they couldn't give away a dual threat asset like that for nothing, especially when they are trying to build a culture of winning right now. When you break down the numbers, the logic for protecting Sophie becomes even clearer. Compared to other players available in the draft, like Bridget Carlton, Sophie holds her own and then some. She is a demonstrably better shooter and a much more effective passer than many of the alternatives. Her ability to move without the ball makes her the perfect teammate for a ball-dominant guard. She knows how to find the open pockets of space and make the defense pay for doubling the stars. You cannot just replace that kind of offensive gravity with a rookie or a project player and expect the same results during a high-stakes playoff push. The biggest difference between a player like Sophie and a player like KK is the mental side of the game. Sophie is described as having a safe pair of hands, meaning she will not make the silly mistakes that lose close games. In the WNBA, the margin for error is razor thin. One bad turnover or one missed defensive assignment can be the difference between a playoff spot and a lottery pick. Caitlin Clark needs teammates who can anticipate her passes and read the floor at her speed. Sophie's high basketball IQ allows her to stay one step ahead, making her an essential piece of the puzzle that the Fever simply could not risk losing in the draft. There is an intangible quality that Sophie brings to the court that does not show up in the box score, but every coach in the league craves it. She is a pest in the best way possible. She gets under the skin of the opposition, disrupts their rhythm, and plays with a level of physicality that sets the tone for the rest of the team. In a league that is becoming more athletic and aggressive, you need someone who is not afraid to do the dirty work. Protecting her wasn't just about her three-point shooting, it was about protecting the team's identity and making sure they did not become soft in the face of elite physical competition from the top seeds. The Indiana Fever are in a unique position where they are now the center of the basketball world. Every move they make is scrutinized by millions of new fans. Losing a popular player like Sophie, or even Chloe Bibby, would have been a PR nightmare. But more importantly, it would have stripped the roster of its veteran leadership at a time when the young core needs it most. The front office had to balance the business side of the sport with the on-court product. By protecting Sophie, they sent a message that they value the culture she has helped build, regardless of the outside noise or the lure of unproven potential that exists in the draft. A lot of critics keep pointing back to the flashes we saw from younger players last season. They argue that you should always protect the highest ceiling in an expansion draft. But the Fever have seen enough to know that a high ceiling is useless if the player cannot even reach the floor. The flashes were too few and far between to justify losing a proven winner. When the pressure was on, the younger projects folded or were relegated to the bench, while Sophie remained a constant. The decision to prioritize a 7.5 out of 10 defender over a maybe superstar was a masterclass in roster management that keeps the momentum going in the right direction. It is no secret that Caitlin Clark carries a massive load on the offensive end. Because she is so focused on creating shots and orchestrating the offense, she needs teammates who can cover for her on the other side of the ball. Sophie Cunningham is that insurance policy. She does not overhelp, which means she does not leave her own shooter wide open just to chase a highlight block. She understands the rotations and the schemes perfectly. Having that kind of disciplined defender behind her allows Caitlin to play more freely, knowing that the backline will not crumble the moment a screen is set or a fast break starts to develop against them.
If Portland had managed to land Sophie, it would have changed the entire trajectory of their first season. They would have had a ready-made star to market to a city that is hungry for high-level basketball. Instead, they were left picking through the scraps of teams that had already protected their most valuable assets. The Fever's move effectively blocked a division rival from getting better and kept their own championship window open. It was a strategic checkmate that proved the Indiana front office is playing a much deeper game than most people realize. They are thinking about the long-term structure of the league, not just next week. It sounds harsh to say a player's stock is in the gutter, but in the professional world, honesty is the only way to survive. The Fever could not afford to be sentimental about a player's draft position or their college accolades. They had to look at the reality of the DNP status overseas and the lack of growth over the last 12 months. In the WNBA, careers can end in the blink of an eye if you do not show constant improvement. By leaving certain players unprotected, the Fever were essentially telling the rest of the league that they no longer believed in the hypothetical and were moving on to more reliable options that could help them win. Every decision the Fever make right now is viewed through the lens of how it helps Caitlin Clark. Protecting Sophie was a move designed to give Caitlin the best possible environment to succeed. You do not build a dynasty by filling your roster with players who cannot stay on the floor in Europe. You build it with veterans who know their roles, play hard every night, and provide the spacing and defense necessary for your superstar to thrive. Sophie is the ultimate glue player, and the Fever realize that if they lost her, the entire structure of the team might start to pull apart at the seams during the most critical moments of the season. As we head into the next phase of the season, the wisdom of this move will become even more apparent. While other teams are struggling to integrate new pieces or dealing with the fallout of losing key veterans to expansion, the Fever have kept their foundation intact. They have a clear hierarchy and a group of players who understand exactly what is expected of them. The shocking move to protect Sophie wasn't really a shock at all to those who understand the mechanics of winning. It was a statement of intent, proving that Indiana is no longer interested in rebuilding. They are interested in chasing a championship right now with the right pieces. This situation serves as a massive wake-up call for the rest of the league. It proves that potential only takes you so far, and that at the end of the day, reliability is the most valuable trait a player can have. Teams that gamble too heavily on raw talent often find themselves at the bottom of the standings, wondering where it all went wrong. The Fever have flipped the script by valuing the safe pair of hands over the flashy highlight reel. It is a philosophy that is already paying dividends and has set a new standard for how expansion draft protection lists should be constructed if you want to keep your superstar happy and your team winning. Ultimately, the protection of Sophie Cunningham tells us everything we need to know about where the Indiana Fever are headed. They are done chasing ghosts and hypothetical stars who cannot cut it on the international stage. They have found their core, and they are willing to do whatever it takes to shield it from the vultures of the expansion draft. In a world of uncertainty, Sophie is the one constant they can rely on to show up, play hard, and keep the momentum moving forward. Whether the critics agree or not, the decision has been made, and the results on the court will soon silence any remaining doubters once and for all this season.